everyone. I'm Adam Papagan. Welcome to the ASMR talk show, the show that feels good to hear. We talk in soft, whispery ASMR voices. We do interviews and just kind of talk back and forth, but we do it in a soft manner, and it's a lot of fun. So thank you for joining us. Before the show today, I got here a little early. I'd worked before, and I had something after this, so I was kind of in between, but I wanted to get ready for the show. And for the show we shot before this, I already had the monologue I wanted to do. But for this show, I just didn't have anything to talk about. But I'm early. There's a hotel next to our studio. And I was like, well, I need something to happen in the next hour or so that I can talk about. Let me go head over to the hotel. So I go in, I go to the bar. It's the middle of the afternoon, so I'm not going to have a drink. But I just kind of wanted to, sit at the bar, take some notes, whatever. So I sit there, and the guy's like, what do you want? I was like, well, you know what? I'll tell you what. Can you do this? Can you make a Roy Rogers, which is Coke and like grenadine and cherry, but can you make it with Diet Coke? And he was like, oh, yeah, no one's ever asked for that. So we tried it, and it was actually really good because the Diet cuts some of the sweetness from the cherry, so it was a nice balance, but it's pretty good. But I'm sitting in there, just drinking my soda, and this French guy staying at the hotel comes up. And so the bartender is probably from El Salvador or something. But they both have to communicate in English, and they both have strong accents. So the French guy's like, I'm not going to do the accent because it's going to embarrass everybody, but I'll just say it without the accent to emphasize the confusion. But the French guy's like, yeah, I need a bottle of rosé. 2 glasses? No, a bottle of the wine that's rosé. What kind of wine? Not white, not red, in between. Rosé. And he was French. He said it like rosé. And then like the El Salvadorian bartender was called a rosé. Like, so they have but it was just watching this whole back and forth. I knew what he was trying to order, but I didn't want to interrupt. But I was just thinking, man, all this confusion. These guys should have just had Diet Coke and grenadine mixed together. That would have been easy to order. It would have been cool. So, maybe in the future, this drink I invented will go on, and they might even name it after me. Wouldn't that be something? Folks, my guest tonight is a poet, kind of carrying on the legacy of her famous father. I'm sure we'll get into all of that. But please welcome Gia Scott-Heron. Gia, what's up? Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks so much for having me on your platform. I appreciate it.
Oh, wow, that's wow. No, that's very, people aren't usually that gracious. So thank you. Thanks for the appreciation.
My pleasure, yeah.
So when you do interviews and stuff, or you meet somebody, how long until they start asking about your father? Because the last name is pretty, you know what I mean? There's no confusion.
It's very unique.
If you know Gil Scott-Heron,
right.
Your name's almost one letter off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which was very much intended. My father, when I was born, everyone thought I was going to be a boy. My mom was the only one that consistently believed, actually, she went around along with whatever anyone else was saying. Like Tina Turner, she touched my mom's belly and she was like, oh yeah, you're having a boy, all right. Because she had, several boys, and I guess the old wives' tale is that if you're carrying low and you have frequent indigestion, then supposedly those are indicators that you're going to have a male, or son or something. So, my dad was the only one that stuck to his guns and said, nope, it's going to be a girl. I just know it's going to be a girl. And guess what? If it is a girl, I get to name her. I get, dibs on the naming rights or whatever. And so everyone was like, okay, yeah, sure, Gil, because everyone else is thinking it's going to be a boy, so we'll just let him have that. And sure enough, I turned out to be a girl, and my dad was like, see, I told you guys, I was right. And so I get to name her. And so at the top of their list, they had the name Gia. He wanted my name to be very close to his and to be, but with a feminine touch to it. Instead of the hard G sound like Gilbert, he wanted it to be the soft G, Gia. So.
Do you have any siblings?
That is a very complicated question.
Oh, okay.
unfortunately. Yeah, you would think that would be like a simple yes or no question, but unfortunately in my case it is not. There are 3 people who came forward and claimed to be children of my father when he passed away. I found out about the 2 older individuals when I was 12. They're 3 years older than me. So they were 15 at the time that I even knew they existed. They were already, no, but they are
But they're the same age.
almost like Irish twins. Yeah, they're from 2 different women, but they're only 5 weeks apart.
Irish twins.
Yeah.
Never heard that term before.
Oh, yeah.
5 weeks,
It's kind
wow.
of a derogatory.
Yeah. Oh, well,
I
you know,
apologize to the Irish
Yeah.
if there are any out there
Yeah.
viewing or watching
No,
this,
it-
but it's
it
an
paints a picture, though.
expression.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an expression where if you're born in the same year, it's called Irish twins because, you know,
Oh,
they're
yeah, no.
Catholic,
Yeah, I
they
gotcha.
can't,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, so, so the oldest, she was born March 23rd, 1977, and then the male that claims to be his son but isn't because he took DNA and failed the DNA test. He was born May 1st, 1977. And then there's myself. I was born March 9th, 1980. And then the youngest was born April 13th, 1998,
Oh, okay.
when my father was approaching 50. So the one that did take DNA, he used my dad's brother as because if he had used my dad, I was the one in control of those, the collection of the DNA. So he would have had to go through me and the courts would have found out. So he didn't want that. He wanted to take a test to find out for himself, you know, outside of the court's purview, whether or not he was related to my dad. And he and my uncle, you know, did the analysis and he failed that test.
Okay.
So my dad's brother, I mean, they're like twins. There's no mistaking, you know, whether or not they're related. So the fact that this individual, Mr. Rackley, took the test and failed is, you know, yeah. So then the oldest girl and youngest girl have not taken DNA. I did just as a show of good faith.
We have it here.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys can. It's a list.
Yeah.
A paper with a list. So you're
Yeah.
not going to be able to read it when if you're watching this, but we can sum it up for them.
Yeah.
So I've never actually seen a DNA test before, but 99.9%.
Right.
Why won't they give you 100?
Because they have to account for human error, so they allow a margin of 0.01 for human error. So you can't ever be 100% in science, I guess. That's the closest you can get. So.
But who's to say what them? Oh yeah, sorry, we gotta keep it. Who's to say that margin is 0.01?
Yeah, I don't know
That seems
how
kinda
they
arbitrary.
made that determination. I guess that, like, in this instance, like, the probability of human error is so small that that's the biggest number that they can give it. Or the biggest or smallest
If you ask me,
margin.
I'm gonna give you 100%.
Thank you.
I'm gonna give you the 100% paternity.
My dad was 100% certain, and so is my mom. She knows the exact day I was conceived and everything, so yeah, they're pretty sure. 100%. So, yeah, they were married and sharing a residence at the time of my birth. And that is criteria number 1 for being someone's child. If the person is born while the mother is married to someone and they're sharing a residence at that time, then you are legally the child of that, whether it's biological or not. That's a legal thing, yeah. So number 2, my father his name is on my birth certificate. And so initially the judge didn't even require me to take DNA.
This is the birth certificate here.
Yeah, with Gil Scott-Heron listed as the father. So,
That's cool.
Yeah.
And your mom's an actress too, right?
Yeah.
Does anybody ever ask about your mom?
You know, not as frequently as my father, you know, but it's okay. She covets her privacy.
Okay.
She was not at all sorry about leaving the industry. Once she had me, she was like, I'm done, I'm retired.
Oh, so you never knew her as an actress?
I mean, I did because her stuff was still playing when I was little, and everyone was talking about all her times as an actress, all the movies she'd been in, all the different sets she'd been on. There's tons of pictures, magazine articles about my mom, so yeah.
I was just got down a rabbit hole of research, but she was discovered on The Dating Game. Is that true?
Yeah. Well, she had just started at UCLA, and yeah, there was like a modeling scout there, and they liked, you know, her look and approached her to do some modeling. She did that, and then was later tapped to go on into television. So then she went on and did that for 10 years, and then was more than happy to quit once I was born. So I'm very lucky and very blessed. She's a good mom, even to this day, you know, encouraging me, supporting me, prodding me right along. So she was a big supporter of my decision to come forward about the, you know, the unknown paternity of the other three. For a long time, I was legally required to remain silent. And then even once I was no longer legally required to, old habits die hard. And so I was already, you know, I'd already become accustomed to not talking about it, not bringing it up. So yeah, I had to almost like push myself to come forward, because another thing about Mr. Rackley, who again is not my father's son, he started a series of lawsuits against me and my family members. So he sued me, my mother, my grandmother, my uncle, my stepfather, my stepfather's bank, Broadway Federal Savings, and JP Morgan Chase. So it's kind of an instance where it's like once shot, twice shy. It was hard to pry myself from my comfortability with keeping the secret, because I knew that he has a penchant for starting lawsuits, whether they're viable or not. That doesn't matter.
Very litigious.
Yeah, right, absolutely. So it kind of made me hesitant to reveal the truth, but at the end of the day, that's what my father stood for. He stood for truth. He stood for anti-corruption. He stood for honesty, and I just felt compelled at the end of the day. And so my mom, she's very into astrology, so she looked into her calendar, and she came up with some dates that would be beneficial for me to come forward with this kind of revelation. And so I said, okay, then we will, you know, release it on April 13th. Daddy, his birthday was April 1st, so this would have been his 70th. May he rest in peace and power. And so, yeah, we went ahead and dropped it. It's called All Tied Up in Knots. And we released it on YouTube on the 13th. And it's holding steady at about 100 views a day. So it's far from viral, but I'm just happy it's public. It's so liberating to be able to speak truth to power and to just get a burden like that lifted off your chest, because I don't know how many siblings I have. The number may be 0. I could possibly be an only child, which would be sad. I was raised as an only child, so I'm used to it. But it would be sad to find that my dad only had one kid, because he told my mom, and my mom told me, when they first got engaged, he said, I want to have a lot of kids. I want to have a big family. And so I would be sad for my father if it turned out that I was the only one. So I would hope that at least one of them, if they ever agreed to take a test, I would hope that it would be positive, because then it would be like, whew, okay, I'm not the only one out here, you know. There's another Scott-Heron out there, and it's not just me. But Yeah, just a lot of people have been saying, gee, the fact that they refuse to take DNA or won't take a DNA test says a lot.
Yeah.
Speaks volumes without saying a word. Because my thing is, if you're so certain and you keep persisting and insisting that you are my father's kid, you should be eager to take a DNA test, one would think. I don't know, I was eager to take it even though I already knew what the results were going to be.
I would, if I thought that maybe this was some scam I could do and I wasn't sure about it,
Right.
I would want to know for sure. Even if I wouldn't want to go all the way into this story,
Right.
and then it becomes part of your identity.
Right.
And this person might not even be related to you. You don't even
Right.
know. Although from their perspective, then what's the alternative? It's not Gil Scott-Heron who's their father.
That
Could
too.
be anybody.
That
you know?
too. But
So,
that's the other problem with waiting so long and not having that in-depth discussion with your mother. Making sure she knows who her partners were, if she knows them, if she's still in contact with them, if she would be able to reach them if it were necessary. You should want to know for your own family medical history, because my father, he had some issues. He had diabetes, runs very heavily on my father's side of the family. His mother, my grandmother, Grandma Bobby, she lost her right eye and then ended up succumbing to her diabetic condition, so she passed away from diabetes. Her father, my great-grandfather, Robert Scott, he had diabetes and lost both of his eyes to the disease, so he went completely blind and then passed away from diabetes. So, and he had it before he passed away, my father. So, yeah, just for things like that, you would want to be sure, because, yeah, what if, you know, it's not my dad, but whoever your father is has some other disease or something else runs in his family that you're not aware of, you know? So it's just important for your own edification to know who your parents are, to know what your lineage is. So, yeah.
So your father was very political, or politically tinged. I don't know, did he ever come out in favor of a presidential candidate? I feel like it was more
No.
social commentary.
He was very much
It was more of a commentary,
like
a
Malcolm
criticism.
X.
Yeah.
He kind of felt like whether you vote Republican or Democrat, you know, they're all dogs. You lie with dogs, you're going to get fleas. And either way you vote, you're still going to be in the doghouse. That's what Malcolm X said in his speech, The Ballot or the Bullet. And so, yeah, my father just felt like, you know, and even I felt like growing up, like when I was first able to vote, I was excited. But then I thought about it and I was like, you know, I'm finding myself having to settle and just like go with the lesser of two evils, as it were, you know? And who wants to do that? You know what I mean? Should I go for the really corrupt candidate or the semi-corrupt candidate? You know, and what kind of choice is that? So my dad was just very like, you know what, all these dudes are dogs, and I'm gonna talk about them like they're dogs, like the dogs they are, you know?
But did he like Obama? When,
He did.
because he passed away while Obama was still president, right?
Oh, yeah.
So he was probably thinking like, oh, we're making some progress.
Yeah,
Because probably what's going on now, he wouldn't be
he thought
super
that
into.
was kind of a scam too. It was kind of like, oh, you know, here's your consolation prize. Now you black people can finally have your black president. You know, kind of like, okay, you dogs will throw you a bone. You know, and yeah, he never got to see Obama become a two-term president. Unfortunately, Dad passed away May 27th, 2011. But yeah, and I cannot tell you how many times people asked me, like, oh, what would your dad think about, you know, our current president, like number 45, and about him being elected and stuff like that. And I said, I think he'd be, he wouldn't be surprised, but he'd be heavily disappointed. And I think he'd be, you know, worried for the country in a sense, and frustrated, because his frustrations began in like 1980, basically around the time I was born, because when he came out in 1970, you could smell revolution. It was like almost tangible. I mean, I wasn't there, but from, all accounts, it was just like thick. It was, it was like a pungent, and it was like a pulse, it was just like this, momentum. And, to have all of that lost because of the Reagan administration and, trickle down economics and the Nicaraguan drug pipeline and all of those things, it just became a perfect storm for people to I don't know, it's like all the wind went out of their sails. And Dad used to like this, he used to like, who's with me? Who's with me? Anybody? Anyone? And it was like, all of a sudden it was crickets, instead of, black is beautiful or fight the power, it was just. And so, that was a source of great pain and frustration for my dad. And then he himself succumbed to the, drug pipeline and became a crack addict and learned how to freebase with Richard Pryor, as it's told, and, all of those things. So it's very sad.
Yeah, it must be what was it like then growing up when was your father gigging? Like, was Richard Pryor coming over to your house? Like, were you part of that world too?
At a very young age, when I was too young to remember.
Appreciate it or know it, or
Yeah, well, there are definitely photos. Yeah.
So these are kind of like your run-of-the-mill family photos.
Yeah, my dad was Stevie Wonder right there.
Yeah.
So.
Was that before you were born, or did you?
No, that was after.
Did you remember this? Did you go see your dad play with Stevie Wonder?
When I was 4, I did. Yeah, they did songs in the key of life. But he was affiliated with Stevie long before I was born. He did the Hotter Than July tour with Stevie, which was part of Stevie Wonder's campaign to get MLK's birthday to be recognized as a national holiday.
Yeah.
And so, Bob Marley was originally slated to be part of that tour, but that was right around the time that he first started experiencing problems with his foot.
Right, yeah.
And was later diagnosed with foot cancer. He didn't know that that's what it was at the time, but that's what it kept him from participating. And so, it's sad that Bob Marley wasn't able to be part of such a historical movement, but he made history in his own right, right? And so my father was the very next choice. It's like, well, Bob can't do it. Oh, let's see if Gil can do it. So.
So we're almost out of time, but I would love to hear a poem because, like your father.
God, how quickly the time flies.
I know, right?
Yeah, especially when we're talking about my daddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'd love to share a little
bit.
Yeah.
Please.
People, very much say that they can sense a little bit of my dad in me, so I'm definitely not going to do it the way I normally do it on stage. Definitely with my inside voice, indoor voice. But this is called My Pen, and it's just me touting about the virtues of my pen. My pen got swag. My pen be feisty. My pen is both sweet and spicy. My pen be Kuji Chagalia. My pen be self-determined in its own destiny in different languages like Swahili. My pen got Nia, Kumba, and Imani. Purpose, creativity, and faith. My pen be Black History Month every single day. My pen only writes in black ink. My pen helps me to increase, release, and unleash my black girl magic. I make jaws drop without surgical enhancement. So when the mic drops, show it ain't no accident. My pen is beyond blacknificent. My pen is blacktastic. My pen is part Dr. King and part Black Panther. My pen be like #Wakanda forever. My pen be pimping and ripping blank pages with its talons like it's T'Challa. My pen spits on the alt-right and decolonize us. Sometimes my pen be sci-fi fly. Its superpower is reminding those who still not woke that the revolution will not be televised. My pen creates like it's made of vibranium, makes my lyrics Teflon tough like titanium, makes my words radioactive like uranium. One day my pen and I will be filling up stadiums. My pen makes me feel blessed to be an artist. My pen be the hardest because my pen is part Gil Scott-Heron and part Bob Marley. My pen be dancing like it's Janet Jackson, ghostwriting for Cardi B. My pen be like, how you doing? Like it's Wendy. And don't worry about the size of my pen. It's what I do with it that matters. My pen has a tattooed tear for every glass ceiling that it has shattered. My pen is about that life. My pen is a gangster activist and advocate. Don't get it twisted. My pen is ruthless but never reckless. My pen is a bad mother. Shut your mouth. My pen is country, ghetto, and unapologetically educated. My pen has always been woke and determined to stay elevated. My pen be like an HBIC with an AA, BA, MBA, and PhD in STFU from an HBCU, sucker. And it minored in giving out L's. But my pen is too blessed to be bitter or petty. My pen is too busy manifesting its destiny. My pen be my alter ego. My pen be a griot. My pen is my shiro. My pen is my platform, and I stand on it proudly and pay homage to the pioneering ancestors who came before we, the ones who had to use the Chitlin circuit, the ones who had to use the back doors when playing at white venues. Yeah, my pen remembers that too. Those are my pen's people. My pen got love for those who recognize that we are all equal. Sometimes my pen thinks that it's Russell Simmons. It'd be like, thank you for listening. God bless you, and good night. And that's my poem.
Gia, thank you for keeping the lineage going,
Yeah,
keeping
my
it alive.
pleasure.
Thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, this is Adam Papagan reminding you that there's a place you can go, and it's your mind. Good night.